Hello beautiful soul family, thank you for joining me for this little transmission. There have been many interesting developments on the Astral, and also there have been many interesting unravelings of mysteries recently. So thank you for joining me, and let's get into it. So in the past two videos I was explaining how I was called upon to close two dark portals recently in the past few weeks, and it started to escalate recently. Like these closings of dark portals started to become more frequent, and they're starting to become like minor portals. Although recently, during a type of vision or meditation that I had before I went to bed, I was shown that there are several more on our worlds and around the world that still need to be closed or transmuted, but all will be handled in perfect order as I have received the information. But now I want to share a very fascinating experience that I just had a few days ago. Before I go to bed, I do my clearings, call in my guides, and also connect with Source and Mother Earth, as we usually do it during our meditations, when we begin our meditations, being this column of light connecting Source with the core of Mother Earth. And after I've done this clearing and meditation, before going to bed, I lay down, and usually stuff happened when I close my eyes, and that evening was no different. I was kind of taken to another world, like I have no clue where it was. All I can know how it looked. I found myself in a very lush and colorful jungle. It was the middle of the night, and the night sky wasn't as ours here on Earth. We didn't just see the stars, but I think like the planet was inside of like a nebula. The sky was very colorful during the night. There were these beautiful colorful gas clouds around the planet in the middle of the night. And Thoth appeared in the foliage. I have seen him as a blue ibis, and then he disappeared in the foliage, and I followed him, and I ended up at a small lake in the middle of the forest. And in the middle of the lake there was this small white being. I think the closest thing that we have as a reference for them would be like the Greys, but he was very different. He was just a very small, skinny and pale-skinned being that was in this lotus posture meditating, and he was meditating and floating above the water basically. And I realized that he was calling for help, basically, because something was going on their world. And when I looked at myself, I wasn't my usual light body. When I travel the astral, I have like a fiery body, or yeah, it's basically made of light, but I'm very similar to this form for some reason. And when I looked at myself, I was very different. I was similar to Thoth, that I had like a white crane head, but I was clothed in jewelry, like silvery ornaments around me on my neck and also my hands. And also I was dressed in a white long robe, and I had like silvery wings that were like a cape behind me. And in my right hand I was holding the scepter of power, while I was walking towards this being that was meditating above the water. And when I appeared there, the being pointed upwards to the sky, and I seen that outside in orbit of their world there was this massive dark portal opening, and it was basically like the size of our moon or something similar. And I could see that dark beings are like pouring in to this realm from that dark portal and starting to invade their world. And then I teleported up to orbit of that world, and I tried to connect to the planet as I did here on Earth, that I put my feet down on the ground and my body could reach up to Source, but it didn't work. Like that world didn't allow me to ground in it, so that was very different. I guess I am not native to that world, so I don't have the connection as I do with Gaia here, and I was not allowed to ground myself with that planet. I suppose that's what happened. I used the Staff of Power to like dissolve all the invaders, and also the portal like shrank back and like folded inside of itself and disappeared. So the white crane is the symbol of wisdom and discipline. They are frequently seen as the messenger of the gods. Cranes help bring light into darkness and are associated with the ability to take people to higher levels of spiritual consciousness. So that was like a very huge revelation regarding the symbolism as I was appearing to that being. And the very next day, this was yesterday, I did the same clearing before going to bed, and I was taken again to a different place and time, and I found myself immersed down below the earth. I think we were in the halls of Amenti, but we were in ancient Egypt and underground. And in this underground temple structure-ish thing, in the middle of the great chamber, there was a sarcophagus, and I think it was a pharaoh. A dead pharaoh was lying in the sarcophagus, and Thoth was next to him, and I appeared again in that white grain form before the sarcophagus, and up until that point I kind of had the notion that I appeared in that form because like that's my own expression of this Thoth energy, and that's the way I embody that energy basically. But at that moment I realized that it was something different or separate than Thoth, because he like appeared completely different to how I was appearing. And he didn't say anything, he just pointed towards the sarcophagus and the pharaoh that was lying in it. First I thought this was like maybe an initiation or something similar, but then I realized that he was dead. And yeah, like I got the impulse to like put my hand on his chest, and as I put my hand on his chest, I could see and also feel how his body is going to decay, and how all of his mortal coil is going to like disintegrate during the ages. And at the same time, like death came over me too. Like I've seen how my skin was peeling away and how my flesh was like mummifying on my skin, on my bones, and I was going deeper in this state of darkness and decay. And then I like came back because I called upon the eternal fire, and like it like reversed the entire process. And I came back to my white grain form, this anthropomorphic form, and I realized that like a little spark of light was leaving my heart center area, and was leaving it and going it, and it was placed inside of the chest of that mummified body, basically, the dead pharaoh. And when it entered his chest, like the entire, his dead body, like kind of started to decay very rapidly and kind of like peeled away like an external skin or something similar. It peeled off and he like awakened like from the ashes as a reborn young man. That's how I've seen him. And when he stood up from the sarcophagus, like renewed, he had like green skin and had the Atef crown on his head. And he was like standing before me, and I realized like, oh, like that's Osiris. And then Osiris left the sarcophagus and went above. And yeah, like he left the underground chamber that we were in. And after that, yeah, like I felt that, okay, like that was it. That was my job here. And I left. And I had a realization like, okay, so this embodiment that I've seen, this white grain, is definitely something other than Thoth's energy. And I bet that there is like a representation in the ancient Egyptian mythology for a white grain. So I went online to search for the white grain and ancient Egyptian mythology, and I find that it does exist, and it is called the Bennu. And the Bennu is an ancient Egyptian deity linked with the sun, creation, and rebirth. He may have been the original inspiration for the Phoenix legend. According to Egyptian mythology, Bennu was a self-created being, said to have played a role in the creation of the world. He was said to be the spirit of Ra and issued a call that determined the nature of creation. He also was the symbol of rebirth and therefore was associated with Osiris. His name in ancient Egyptian means to rise in brilliance or to shine. Yeah, like I'm grateful that I was able to share this experience. And please notify me and write below if you are experiencing some interesting stuff on the astral lately, because I know that a lot of you are having some very exciting experiences, and if you wish to share them, please write them below, and see you in the next transmission. Be well, aho, blessings.